And we have Faiz Khan. Welcome, Faiz.
Thanks. Thank you for having me again.
Yes, last time we did speak about a few things. One thing was your garage, Wheelocity.
Yep.
Then your company, LMP, with your partners. And I thought, you know what, let's speak a little bit more when it comes to cars. Last time we did speak and touch lightly on the service and the replace instead of repair culture. We did speak on the fleece culture.
Yeah.
You have a garage of yourself, so you repair and work on cars. So I was thinking this is the best time to ask you. The traffic these days, it's insane. The amount of cars on the road and the types of cars are really a lot. So we have the normal petrol car, then we have the hybrid, and we have the electric. So can you tell us the difference between these?
Okay, so the normal car is combustion engines. It's been around for ages, still my favorite. Then we had the hybrids introduced probably 20, 30 years ago. Not that popular back then, but ever since, I would say in this market, since Toyota introduced it with the Prius in some regions, and here they came up with the RAV4, it's become quite popular. And they're doing really well. Hybrid is a mix of the regular combustion engine with an electric motor. So balances both. You get more mileage for sure. And the introduction of EVs in the last decade, that's changed the market. That's populated most of the new segment cars in UAE. EV runs completely on batteries. The electric motors run by the batteries and environment friendly. That's how everyone is going now.
So, say for example, a normal regular car, like the petrol engine, the combustion engine, we change the battery of that car every year. But how does the hybrid battery work? How often does one change, or what's the life of that battery?
Well, most hybrid batteries last longer. The hybrid also has the same 12-volt battery as you have in a regular car. It also has the battery that runs the electric motor, which is less powered than an EV. It's about 1 to 2 kilowatts per hour. They last about 6 to 7 years, and some manufacturers give you that warranty as well, 6 year, 7 year warranty on the battery. So they do have the regular battery which you use, which is also changed every year and a half or 2 years.
So how big is the battery that runs the hybrid car?
In terms of size, I am not very sure. So,
but it has to be heavy, correct?
Yeah, for sure. Same with EV cars. So the EV cars that run the car, they're placed on the chassis, the floor bed of the car, and they're heavier than a regular battery. Or that's what makes an EV car heavier than a normal combustion engine car. It's the battery size and the battery weight.
Right. Now, say for example, in a hybrid, the battery does not work at all times. It works in certain phases, especially when it's in a low power.
It works at slower speeds.
Right.
So initially the electric motor kicks off, which is why when you drive a hybrid, initially at slow speeds, it's very quiet until the engine kicks in. When you accelerate, sudden acceleration is when the engine kicks in. Other than that, it's initially run on the battery. This is for a regular hybrid. There's also a plug-in hybrid, which has a bigger battery capacity, a stronger motor. So that needs to be charged physically, like an EV car as well. Those are plug-in hybrids. For those cars, yes, the motor is higher. You get a bigger mileage as compared to a regular hybrid.
An EV, the cost of an EV is very high. Plus, everybody worries about the charge. Will the charge last the duration of the drive? And if so, and if not, then where to charge it? And the amount of time that it takes to charge is quite a bit. So, yeah. Say, for example, considering all of that, why do people still go for EVs? Why not choose a hybrid instead?
I would say a lot of people are going for EVs now because of, being sustainable, because of, choosing particular brands. They are pretty popular because of the brand value of those cars. I personally feel in this market, charging is still an issue. especially when you have a lot of EV cars on the road and limited charging spots, or even lack of superchargers that reduce the amount of charge time needed to charge, like you have in Europe or US. So why do people still choose it? It's still a good question.
Because you said sustainability, and you see, once the battery runs out, or it's the life of the battery goes, you can't really do anything about it. The battery you throw, you discard. Is that sustainable?
Not really, but then the fact that the battery does last you a good 6 to 8 years. So in the long run, yes, the EV does save a lot of money, does save, your fuel costs, you could say. But the price points at which EVs are placed, I feel it's high. Very high, where you're not actually saving much now in comparison. Would you rather put in the extra cost upfront, or would you just buy a regular car and then, pay it as fuel costs over so many years?
See, you have a garage, so a lot of cars come in, old cars as well. Some have 20 plus years of drive time. How does that compare to an EV? When you say EV battery can last you 6 to 8 years, say even 10 years. After 10 years, what can you do with that car? Can you revive it, or is you just discard it? Because the majority of the car is the battery, isn't it? And to change the battery is going to be as expensive.
So most of the EV cars are just about, I would say, hitting the 10-year mark now.
Right.
So we still need to know whether they do last the 20 or 30 years, or whether they end up becoming, classic cars in the future. But for those, I mean, I have a couple of friends who've had EV cars for a while, and a battery replacement costs close to 10 grand or more, 10 to 15 grand in some instances.
This is for an EV or for a hybrid?
For an EV.
Okay.
So at Wheelocity, we don't really get a lot of EVs and hybrids. We do get hybrids in terms of Lexus and Toyotas, not other brands. So since we don't get a lot of EVs, I would not be able to tell you how long the battery lasts, or what exactly would entail in replacing a battery.
Can you tell us the pros and cons of an EV, an hybrid, and a regular combustion engine? Let me put it this way. Which one would you choose in terms of preference? What would be your first pick, given a combustion engine, an EV, and a hybrid? This is only Faiz talking.
Yeah, I would pick a combustion engine.
Okay.
Why? Because of the ease of just filling fuel, how quick it is, and the options you have still for combustion engine cars. Every manufacturer still makes them. You get it in all price points. I would then pick a hybrid. Limited options, but in terms of mileage, yes, it gives you a lot. You can still refuel the car whenever you need to. And last, yes, EVs are really good cars, but just for the aspect of the hindrance to charge them, I live in an apartment, so my apartment block doesn't have an EV charger. I do not want to go to a mall or an office just to charge it on a weekly basis or a couple of days.
The service cost for a combustion engine and a hybrid?
Very similar. You still have the same components in a hybrid car. Most of it, they do have some extra components as well, which generally don't fail. So you're talking about the electric motor and other aspects for the hybrid charging. They generally last a very long time. So 7-8 years, they're still good. Regular maintenance on a hybrid is similar to a combustion engine. You still have your brakes, your suspensions, your engine oil change, all regular. Price points are very similar.
And what if the battery of the hybrid conks off and fails? Can you still run that car?
There would be, I'm sure there would be some issues with it, but I think you still can. I think that would depend from manufacturer to manufacturer.
Have you seen the Chinese cars on the road?
Yes, I really like them.
Amazing, isn't it? And very stylish, really cool designs. Your thoughts on that?
Perfect cars in terms of having a garage and having customers driving them. Feedback is amazing. Everyone who's bought a Chinese car, whether it's an EV, whether it's a regular combustion car, they love it. And maintenance-wise, they don't break down. I've had cars come in with 80,000 kilometers, 100,000, just regular service. And unlike the other Japanese or Korean cars, they do not have issues. No AC issues, just regular maintenance, wear and tear. And the car is still very smooth and customers are happy.
What about the parts? Since they're all new cars, the other parts really are readily available?
Now, yes. I would say 4 or 5 years ago, not as much. But now we have, big prominent dealers who have taken dealership of Chinese cars. So they've made sure parts are available always. If not, you get them in a 3-day order or a week order. So parts is no longer an issue for Chinese cars.
And the price point is so cheap.
Price point is amazing. In comparison, they give you everything, a full option car at probably 60% of a premium European brand.
Yeah.
And I would say they're as good, just that people are still not comfortable with the brand. And, you still have that thing that, okay, it is a Chinese car, but I think that notion should go away.
With a lot of Chinese vehicles and their great price points, what is the scene in the used car market?
So if you're asking whether to go for a new car or a used car?
Yes. Because, see, the thing is, there's a perspective that needs to be broken, you said.
Yeah.
When it comes to Chinese cars. So many people will be like, this car is a popular Japanese car. We can buy this one and it can last for years, as compared to a Chinese car, which is, a brand new one. So your thoughts on that?
Well, Chinese cars, they've come into the market globally recently, but they've almost reached the 10-year mark of being reliable, of proving to be reliable. So I would say back in the day, probably Japanese cars had a similar situation where they had to prove themselves, and they have. It's been 50, 60 years of Honda, Toyota, Mitsubishi. Similarly, Chinese cars would reach that point. I just feel that they're going to reach it quicker because they're coming with stunning vehicles. Coming back to the used cars question, for me personally, I would pick a new car over a used car any day. Just for the fact that, you save a lot on maintenance cost. You are covered under warranty for 3 years, 5 years. Some Chinese cars even give you up to 10 years warranty today, whether it's EV or the regular car. So if it's in your budget, I would always say go for a new car. If it's not, of course, used cars are good. Again, subject to, how it was maintained, how it was driven, and if you know the history.
Especially with the flooding.
Flooding has been an issue in other markets. It's a new issue in UAE. But even without the flooding, yes, always if you know the history of a car, if it's from your friend, if it's from someone from your family, you know the history, you know the condition, you know what you're getting into. Otherwise, a lot of people buy a used car without knowing what they're getting into. Some of them even buy it without inspecting it and later end up spending more than what they intended to.
Say, for example, if someone needs the car to be checked or an advice to buy a second-hand car, would the Wheelocity team help them in that?
Yes. So usually most of our weekends go in helping people pick out cars. We do a complete inspection of the car. We will, figure out or try to figure out the history of the car, whether it's been in an accident, what, future maintenance costs you could incur. I think that really helps people determine whether they want to buy it or not. Just last week, I inspected a car for a friend. Car looked great on the outside, but then once we inspected it, it had so many maintenance issues that were neglected all these years, and it would have costed, my friend at least 6,000 to 7,000 dirhams, and it didn't make the deal worthwhile anymore. So always get your cars inspected before you buy a used car, either from a garage or RTA does a comprehensive check. You can also get that inspected by them before you consider buying a used car.
What is this turbocharged engine, Faiz?
So a turbocharged engine, it draws more air into the engine, thus providing more power. A lot of new manufacturers are going for turbocharged engines because the size of the engine can be reduced. So you go for a smaller engine, attach turbo to it. It gives you the same power output of a bigger engine.
And what is this thing that is taking place right now? Everyone's tuning their engine, chip tuning. Is that
Chip tuning.
okay?
So it's basically like a sort of a jailbreak, I would say.
Okay.
Is
it legal?
It is not legal.
Okay.
Or I would not know that.
Okay.
Some aspects are legal, some are not legal.
Right.
It
right.
was illegal a
Right.
couple of years ago. Maybe it's legal now because a lot of chip tuning centers are there.
Mm-hmm.
So what it does is it maximizes the performance of all the components in the car.
Right.
So especially with turbochargers, you can get in more horsepower for your car. So it reprograms the ECU to basically kind of give the car a boost.
This doesn't help in the mileage anyway. So the
Yeah,
people
no.
who are looking for mileage, this is not what you need to do.
No,
Okay.
not at all. This is more power, more torque, more fun.
Okay. Now this is the last question that I have for you. So when it comes to servicing any of these cars, especially changing the oil, there are times where, okay, yes, your oil change is due, but you need to do you need to run a few errands, or you have some work, and then you exceed that mark, that cutoff mark, or the kilometers that you use. Is it okay for any kind of engine, or you say?
I would not recommend, exceeding the timeline for changing oil. Do it in time, either the 10,000, 15,000 kilometers or the 6 months or 1 year interval. Do not exceed it. It is not recommended by manufacturers or dealerships. There are instances where dealerships even void the warranty if you exceed your service intervals.
Okay.
So as much as possible, get your oils replaced on time.
100, 200? No?
I would not recommend it.
Okay. Okay.